KoitCast.
Today's guest is the chairman and co-founder of OPUS, the Organisation for Paranormal Understanding and Support. He was the former Assistant State Director for MUFON for Northern California and worked as an abduction specialist for MUFON International. Please give a huge Koit welcome to Les Velez. Hi Les, and welcome to KoitCast.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
No worries, it's an honour to have you here. I've heard you before on other radio shows and shows in the past. It's an honour for me to have you here to discuss things with you directly, so thank you for coming.
Well, thank you.
Let's start with the old classic. Who are you? Where you're from? What's your background? All that good stuff.
Okay. Well, present day, I'm living in Texas. My whole process got started when I was living in Connecticut. This is where I was born and went to school there for quite a while and then went off to college. But when I was 11 years old, I was coming back in the house after feeding my dog, and it was, getting to be dark already. And I noticed off to my right this object, no sound, just slowly moving across the treetops, and it was self-illuminated, and it just scared the heck out of me. I had no idea what it was. I mean, it wasn't a balloon. It wasn't anything that I could figure out in my young head at that point in time. And I ran in a house and tried to get my father to come out and take a look at this thing with me. And finally, by the time he did come out, it was gone. And he says, well, it was probably just a beacon of light reflecting off a cloud. I said, but that's a very low cloud. So I went shortly thereafter to the library and started to pick up books on UFOs. And back in those days, George Adamski was the prominent figure with his books and his incredible pictures that he had taken with his telescope of these craft, and his stories about being in touch with the Venusians. So anyway, it was fascinating to me, and I really got into it for a while. And then I went off to college. As I said, I was in the ROTC, the Reserve Officer Training Corps. And when I graduated from college, I went into the Army in the artillery branch, actually. And so I spent time there, 6 years, 2 years active, 4 years reserve duty. And right before I went in the service, I got married. And after the time that I spent in the service, we settled in Connecticut. And raised two daughters. And in 1985, I went out to California from Connecticut. There was an opportunity to get involved with a company out there. And so I did that for 32 years. I stayed out there until I retired, and I'm retired now. And decided to, from a cost of living type of a situation, that Texas was a better deal. Plus, one of my daughters was living here. So I wanted to be close to one of my daughters. And so in 85, as I said, when I moved out to California, one day I picked up the San Jose Mercury News, and I saw this article about Stanton Freeman, this nuclear physicist, coming to San Jose City College to talk about UFOs and a government cover-up. And I'm going, oh my God, I got to go see this guy. This sounds very interesting to me. So anyway, I went to see him, and I expected to see a handful of people, but the auditorium was full. He gave an incredible presentation. And on my way out, I noticed a table that was set up by an organization called MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, which was established here in Texas, actually in 1969 by a couple of engineers. They're trying to understand, from a scientific basis, what are these craft and how do they operate, and all of those kind of questions. Kind of a nuts and bolts approach. All right. So I noticed that they had a monthly journal. So I decided, okay, I'll get the monthly journal and start reading about cases. And after a while, that wasn't enough for me, and found out that they had a field investigator training course. And so I decided, well, okay, I'm going to jump in here with both feet, and I'm going to take this course and then see what happens. And so I did. I passed the exam, and then I started to do some cases with a more senior investigator. And the cases that I got involved with, almost without exception, were people were saying that they not only had a sighting, but they had contact with non-human intelligences. And I remember the first one, I was quite skeptical at that point, because I was kind of a nuts and bolts kind of a guy.
Well, especially being in the army. Yeah, you kind of have to be, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, then the second case came and the third case. And it just almost one right after the other, people were talking about being in contact with these non-human intelligences. And so one day, one of these experiencers, as I call them, said, did I know of other people having similar experiences? And I said, yes, I do. And the next thing I know, I'm facilitating a support group in my office in San Jose, California, which was quite interesting. And my fellow workers knew what I was doing, and they actually were quite interested. I didn't get any skepticism really, but they said, well, there must be something going on if all these people are coming forward and telling you stories that are very similar, in which they are. They're very similar in a lot of instances. So there's a real pattern that gets established. So anyway, during these sessions, they were incredible. Listening to these, I learned more just sitting in these meetings and talking to these people about their experiences, and it was absolutely fascinating. I got a call one day from the international director of MUFON, and he said, this reporter in your area is looking to talk to someone about UFO investigations and things of that nature. Would you be available? And I said, sure. Okay, I'll be happy to talk to him. And so we had a nice afternoon together, took a lot of notes, and the article was published in the Monterey Coast Weekly paper. And soon thereafter, I got a contact from a woman that saw the article, and she says, I'm constantly in touch with these off-earthly entities, and I'd like to understand what's going on with my brain when I'm in contact with these entities. And I said to myself, I have no idea how I could possibly help this person. But then she said she was working with an emergency room doctor down in Carmel. And that piqued my interest, because if the doctor is interested in what's going on with her, I had a doctor friend that was also interested in meeting other doctors that were interested in the phenomena. And so I called him up and I told him what was going on. And I said, why don't we go down there and see this person and see what she's all about? And then you can meet this doctor and, maybe strike up a relationship here that might be beneficial to everybody. So we did. We went down there. And as we walked into her house, there was this picture on the wall, and she's standing on the back of a rather large boat. And I asked her, in crystal clear blue waters. I mean, it was just gorgeous shot. What were you doing down there? And she says, "Oh, I was helping these treasure hunters." I said, "Really? How were you doing that?" She says, "I was in contact with the captain of the galleon that had gone down."
Oh, mediumistic wise, you mean? Yeah.
So what we found out that after a near-death experience that she became very psychic, and all these things started to happen to her, that she had that capability of contacting various entities, and she journaled a lot of her information. Some of it's absolutely fascinating, and but we came away that afternoon this doctor friend of mine, Dr. Eugene Lipson, who actually is the co-founder of the organization, who unfortunately passed away a number of years ago. But we said, how can we possibly help people like this? And so the idea of setting up an organization was hatched. And then in 1994, OPUS, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support, was hatched. And we became a 501c3 nonprofit organization recognized by the U.S. IRS, our tax friends. And
they're not friends in any way.
Yeah. So anyway, and that's when we got started. So we've been doing this for over 30 years now. And our mission basically is to help people having paranormal experiences, that's a very broad brush type of word, because it takes in so many areas. I mean, whether it's near-death experience, poltergeist activity, spiritual awakening, Kundalini awakening, UFO-related abductions, near-death experience. It covers a very broad area. And it's interesting how over the years, most of the people that have come our way have had contact with these non-human intelligences. We don't get a lot of people coming to us with poltergeist activity or things of that nature. However, we do get that occasionally, and what we do is we have other organizations that we're affiliated with that we can point people to, these organizations that can give them better help than we can. As it turns out, what we have set up to help these experiencers has worked out very well. The first thing, and probably the most helpful, is the confidential online support group. It's totally private, and we have over 400 people from around the world that are talking 24/7 to one another about their experiences, asking questions. But the most important thing that it provides a person is the fact that they're not alone, that other people are having similar types of experiences. And it gives them an area to be able to get it off their chest, so to speak. I mean, because a lot of times they can't talk to family members, they can't talk to fellow workers, they can't talk to clergy. They're isolated. They're isolated, and that is very, very difficult for a lot of these people when they have these experiences, which are basically traumatic in the beginning stages. Most of these things, 99% of them are very disturbing, and but after a while, they become less threatening. People become more accustomed to what's going on. They start to be able to incorporate it into their lives in a better way. But then there are other people that have a very difficult time trying to integrate any of this into their normal routine. Which those are the people that really need the help the most, because then, the second thing that we have done is we've set up a referral network of mental health practitioners and hypnotherapists, that if someone is looking for help of that nature, that we can, at least point them in a direction where the person already has knowledge about these types of things. One of the worst things that can happen to a person is they go to a psychologist or psychiatrist and they have no background in any of this. And they basically tell these people, well, if you don't have a psychopathology, which most of these people do not, I mean, these people are very sane. And we've done research, and I can go over that a little bit later, but these people are come in contact with someone who doesn't have the background. It can be traumatizing even again for them, let alone forget about the experience itself, but having people say, well, here, take some drugs. Here, let me put.
And we don't want that. Right, Les, there's a lot to unpack there, and I think I'm going to interject at this point because I want to get to everything about Opus momentarily. But let's dive back into your background just a little bit to cover up a couple of the questions I have. So you were 11. You see this item or
Hmm.
craft, whatever you want to call it. What
Hmm.
color was it? How fast was it going? All that stuff.
Yeah, it was going very slow. It was just, I mean, probably less than 5 miles an hour. I mean, it was almost like it was drifting. Okay. But it wasn't. There was no wind. There was nothing. So this thing was moving on its own. Um, and it was basically a self-illuminated type of an object, an oval type of a self-illuminated. So the color was, in the vanilla, I guess if you want to
Okay.
call it vanilla uh, type of a color. Uh, but yeah, just a, just a, but I mean, just something that shouldn't have been there, and that it could not figure out what it was.
Now, looking back on it, do you think, because I've discussed this with other guests I've had on the show, do you think it was a marker point or something in your history that awakened you to think on a different path?
Well, I think this incident, whether or not that was deliberate on whoever,
Hmm.
um, really woke me up. I mean, it really just started me down this path of being super interested in you. Before that, I wasn't. I had no interest. Um, and then that all of a sudden threw the switch. And that's an interesting point when I say throw the switch, because it also, as I said, when I went off to college, I kind of forgot about it all, and then I went into service, and it was just not, again, on my radar. It kind of disappeared. So, like, the switch was off. And then when I got out to California, and then I picked up that newspaper article, and it was like, bam, the switch is thrown again. So, and I think what it is, and I've told this to numerous people, that there've been times, and I've been doing this now for over 30 years, that I've decided, okay, I've had enough. I'm going to back out. I'm going to let somebody else run with the ball. Um, but I get sucked back in, and it's
Yeah,
like, I'm not supposed to be doing other things. I got to keep doing this. And so I definitely feel that there's some other intelligence afoot here that has decided that this is the route that I need to be taking and continue to take.
I agree. Again, I've spoken to other people who've said exactly the same thing. They've tried to get out for whatever means, and then a book that comes across their path or something else that
Yeah.
reignites that passion. Um, so I suppose the question would be: imagine you hadn't have seen that light in the sky.
Hmm.
Would you still walk this path? Would it be another marker down or another nudge later on that would get you in? Do you think?
Boy, that's a good question. Right now, that was a seminal incident for me that really started me on that path. I what I, I've been around, in various places in this country, in the U.S., and what I've noticed is that after I've been there to these various locations, my travels, whether it's business or military or whatever, that there always seems to be something significant has happened in that area. And I don't know why I end up there. It's like a learning situation. Okay, now you have to go here, and now you're going to understand something that happened, and you need to understand or to know about it, and add that to your resume, if you will.
Does that in some way make you feel as if you are a pawn on a chessboard being played by somebody?
Well, there are times definitely you feel like that. You definitely feel like that. It's like, how the hell did I get myself here? you
Hmm.
know, and 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 um, so yeah, that's the proverbial question about is life fated in a certain way? There's nothing you can really do to change it, or I kind of believe that the big milestones are probably set in concrete, but all this stuff in between, you get to go over here or over there, but the main route you're not going to be able to get off of it. And it's just fascinating.
It is fascinating, but weird at the same time. But I 100% believe that is to be the case as well, especially having spoken to all these other people who say the same thing. And there's got to be something in consensus. The other thing I want to discuss from your past, obviously, you said you saw Stanton Freeman, or
Yes.
Friedman, should I say?
Yeah.
A quality bloke with a great voice. I always liked his voice for some reason. Voices do it for me for some reason. Just my markers, maybe. Well done for seeing him. I'm kind of jealous of that I didn't get to live in America, or in North America, so I could see all these famous ufologists and researchers. So, how did that feel seeing him?
Oh, it was fantastic because it was like my reintroduction, and to have him hold up his books that he's written, and with so many pages redacted that he was able to get through the Freedom of Information Act, that the CIA, said, no, you can't see this, you can't see that, and he had the best arguments with regard to debunkers, and these people that they've made up their mind already. They don't want to see the facts. They don't want to see anything. And of course, now we're right in the middle of some craziness here in our political situation. We got our big presidential election coming up in 2 weeks, and matter of fact, I voted today.
Oh, did you? Well played.
Early voting. Here's my somewhere like where'd it go?
Got a sticker of it. You voted.
I voted. Anyway, so yeah, it's an amazing time, and we got congressional hearings coming up on November 13th. Once again, so many wonderful people out there. The George Knapps and Jeremy Corbell and Ross Coulthart.
That's the one.
Yes. Anyway, these guys are doing some amazing things. Bringing whistleblowers forward and talking to people about all these things that are happening. Another one, Lou Elizondo, just wrote his book Eminent, and I had it just before COVID shut everything down a couple of years ago. I had the honor to have lunch with Lou and a number of other people. He had come in this area to interview Terry Lovelace,
I've spoken to Terry, lovely chap.
Yeah, and he's a good friend, and he's actually on our advisory board. So Lou was there to interview him for the series Unidentified. And unfortunately, that interview never got released because I think powers to be wanted to focus on nuts and bolts type things rather than going off into the experiencer area. But during that lunch, Lou mentioned a couple of interesting things. One is they think whoever they are, think they know how these craft operate. And it's in conjunction with the skin of the craft, what the skin of the craft is made up of, and a rather small power source. And I asked him, I says, is it element 115? He says, no, it's not element 115. So, and then he was drawing on his napkin. He was talking how these things seem to bend time and space. So it was fascinating. It was absolutely fascinating. But
yeah, I kind of envy that one as well. Did you get to meet Stanton or at that thing or not?
Yeah. I met him a number of times actually afterward at the various UFO MUFON symposiums. Mostly he's been there, selling his books, and so you get an opportunity to go up to his table and chat with him a little bit. But I had done some research on James McDonald, the astrophysicist out of University of Arizona, who died under weird circumstances, supposedly committed suicide. But Anyway, I went to the University of Arizona and the archives, and I was going through the archives and his papers and things. And he had one of the articles, and I told this to Stanton one day. I said, James McDonald didn't trust you. It was written up in one of the papers that he was writing. He said, I don't know about that guy Stan Freeman. I don't know if I should trust this guy. But it was interesting. I was actually trying to do some more research on James McDonald, and supposedly he had 15 small notebooks, which nobody has been able to find, that were supposedly secreted away. And I went and actually saw his wife before she passed away. And we had an opportunity, me and actual Anne Druffel she wrote the book, How to Defend Yourself Against Alien Abduction. And So we went through a garage that had loads of stuff in it, but we never came across those little books that supposedly had some very interesting information in it. But maybe
Well,
someday.
I imagine there's loads of books and photographs and all sorts of amazing things that we'd like to see that are stowed away, never to see the light of day, and that's a shame.
Yeah, no, it's true. That is true.
Right, now, let's branch into the Opus side of things. Now, you've given us when it started, who started it, etc., etc. How much of the work for I suppose, the people involved is battling stigma?
Well, stigma is still a big issue. It's probably not as big an issue anymore because of people like yourself doing these types of podcasts. And thank you very much for doing what you do. Helping get the word out that these kind of things are happening with people that are not crazy. They don't have a psychopathology, and they have proof. They have implants.
Yes.
Like you interviewed Terry Lovelace. You saw what happened to him, and the late Dr. Roger Lear had extracted 17 implants from people, and they have incredible capabilities. Their isotopic ratios are not of this earth. What these things are made up of. They transmit. They move. They do all kinds of crazy things, and scoop marks on people. Also, experiences where people have had healing capabilities that when they came back after matter of fact, I had the opportunity to talk to Robert Salas and his wife, who wrote a book about the Maelstrom Air Force Base, where the UFO came over and shut down the whole missile base. Here I did a little presentation at the MUFON Symposium in Las Vegas a couple of years ago, and they were there, and they came up to me afterwards because I was talking about the experiencer situation. Well, they told me both of them had been abducted. Both of them have been abducted, and when
I don't know that about Robert Salas.
yeah, when she came back, she had healing capabilities. She could heal people. And, it's just absolutely fascinating when you really start to dig into all of these things. And I think that there is probably, and this is my latest theory on this, is that we've all had an experience, whether we consciously remember it or not. I was in a support group meeting in my office in San Jose, and at the end of the meeting, a person said to me, I've seen you before. Oh, we're at a UFO conference. No, I saw you on board the craft. Oh, okay. Well, I kind of blew it off. I didn't think much about it at that point. And then it was like a year and a half later that a totally different person comes up to me after the meeting and says the same thing. I've seen you before. And I said the same thing. Where? No. You were sitting on this bench naked on board the craft and you were freaking out, and they told me to go over to you to calm you down. So at that point, I decided to go get regressed. I figured, all right, if this is supposedly happened, I got to find out a little bit more. I had 3 separate regressions. I had multiple past lives, which is another thing that the aliens talk about. Reincarnation is kind of the way the universe works. So, but I never found anything along the lines of being on board a craft. Okay. And and I never said anything to the hypnotherapist as far as what I was really looking for. I just wanted to go down and then see what comes up. And the person later that I was talking to said, well, maybe this person actually did see you on board a craft in a previous lifetime, because time and space gets manipulated. They have the capability of manipulating time and space, and which is like magic to us. But they've figured out how to work the system, and so there's so many cases where you have missing time or time dilation or suppressed time, or it's just like they bring you back before they took you.
I know, it's mind blowing. You go down a rabbit hole of looking at time. You go down a rabbit hole of looking at past lives. It's just an ever expanding fractal of questions that you can never get answers to, or seemingly can't get answers to.
Right. Exactly.
But it's good. It's good playing out those thought experiments. I want to say that was brave of you to go down the regression route, because I've asked other people before, why haven't you gone down the regression route? And they said because they would be scared of what they would find, right? And I'd probably be on that path myself. I want to on a logical, intellectual level, but I also wouldn't want to in case it buggered me up trauma-wise,
Right, exactly, and that's what we counsel people on when they come to us and they start, talking about hypnotherapy, and I tell them that once the toothpaste is out of the tube, it's hard to put it back in. So you got to be very sure that you want to do this, because you may find out something that's you don't want to know. But I've never followed up again. And right now, I think I'm just going to let it lay where it is.
I think you should. But part of me, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, if you look like you do now, you've got to admit there's probably loads of blokes of your vintage who look like you, with the goatee and beard. So you can't say 100%, oh, it was definitely you that somebody said. Do you know what I mean? There's that to play in as well, potentially.
Oh, sure. Oh, absolutely.
Sorry, carry on.
No, go ahead.
Okay, but back to the stigma side of things then. What do you think the scope of that is? You said it still is playing a part, because I imagine it would be less these days with it being more, widespread and out in the open. How much of a part is it still playing?
Well, it still plays a part. How it's been reduced quite a bit because of, again, shows like yours. All the things are on social media. All the things that are on television, so many shows that are talking about this all the time. Ancient Aliens here in the United States, and I think it's over there in the UK as well, that, they've brought up a lot of things. And, I've had the opportunity to work with Linda Moulton Howe, and she, matter of fact, in my book, The Unknown Others, she does the forward to it, and remarkable lady, and so we've done a lot of positive things together where people contact her constantly, and she points them in our direction if that's kind of help that they're looking for. So that really helps us out a lot. Being able to talk to people like that, and others like yourself that put the word out. Thank you.
Obviously, with the stigma, we're still going to use that term, that governments and media and stuff have imposed on people across the years to obviously try and keep the secret, assuming it is that case. How badly have we been hurt as a species, do you think, over the years via that process? To suppress paranormal, do you think?
Yeah. This what I've really feel is going on. We're involved with a spirituality that we have lost due to a lot of this stigma. People years and years ago, before we had television or anything like that, people were having experiences. I mean, this has been going on for eons. This is nothing new. Um, and so I think people were more spiritual back in those days. And I think these people are on a spiritual journey because it starts off nine times out of 10 very negative. Some people do have immediately positive experiences, but most of them are negative. But then they get to accept them. And then when it, the final stage is when it stops, it's like the Stockholm syndrome. They say, how come you're not coming for me anymore? Kind of a thing. But yeah, the stigma situation, it's not easy to overcome, especially when you have government trying, putting out the word, well, these people are, seeing Venus, or it's swamp gas, or they're crazy, or they're lunatics,
or swamp gas on Venus.
Yes, exactly. So it's hurt. It's hurt. Certainly is hurt. And the government, there's two factions now within our government. You have the group that's basically, I'll just call them the Pentagon. All right. And then you have the other people, which that first congressional hearing when David Grush was involved with it, I was so impressed how bipartisan it was. We had Republicans and Democrats that usually go after each other by the throat. They were in a total agreement with what was going on, that, hey, this is baloney. We have to know what's going on. This needs to be put out there. And then, of course, the Pentagon comes back, well, due to national security issues, we cannot do this. And well, so we're dealing with that. And also in Lou Elizondo's book, he talks about the religious aspects of in the government that have tried to suppress this. They're just saying, hey, these are all demons, and we need to not talk about this, just bury it. And so he's dealing with that as well. These ultra conservative religious people that have decided to join up, I guess, with the Pentagon to a certain degree and trying to suppress all this. So
ultimately, they're going to age out, though, aren't they? And then you're going to get the people with the new minds who will then take over ownership of security and stuff that will help push this forward. It's always going to go in a positive way.
Yeah, what was it? Max Planck talked about the fact that you can't change people's mind, but the best way to have change is when these people die.
Exactly.
And then the new people come on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's how it's all going to get out. From the Opus perspective, what type of reports do you receive the most? Is it ghosts? Is it alien stuff?
Yeah, it's basically, as I mentioned earlier, it's as it's turned out, it's mostly people talking about their experiences with non-human intelligences, whether it's the Greys, whether it's the reptilians, whether it's the praying mantis type, or the Nordics, or our military, because there are people that have been on board a craft and been involved with the standard types of aliens, and then, oh, there's military men in here in army uniforms or navy uniforms or something like that. And that's supposedly, Haim Eshed, who wrote that book, that Israeli retired general that wrote that book a couple of years ago, about the fact that, oh yeah, we've been in contact with these aliens. We have, and they don't want to out themselves yet because we're not ready. But we have bases on the moon. We have bases on Mars. The Space Force is, you wonder why that came up? Well, I guess they couldn't keep that secret anymore.
It makes you want all these answers now, although, is it a double-edged sword? If we had the answers, our minds would explode, or we'd hate the answer, do you know?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, what's the percentage of people that would be okay with this versus the percentage that would not be okay with it? I think 70% of the people would be fine. I mean, they probably wake up in the morning and say, "Oh yeah, I know about that."
Yeah, but it's the 30% that will go on killing sprees, isn't it? That's the problem. And
The
we don't want
purge,
those.
the
Um,
purge.
exactly. We don't want that. From the organisation's perspective, what support is given? Is it like an? I'm going to say this in this way. Is it like an AA meeting where you all gather round and talk from a
Hmm.
therapeutic, or is it something else?
No, well, matter of fact, just yesterday we had a Zoom meeting for the support group, and as many people are welcome. I mean, I've got 400 people and over 400 people in the support group right now. So um, I don't think my Zoom membership could handle 400. But anyway, we usually have around 10 people that end up showing up and wanting to talk. And so that's one thing that we also offer on a monthly basis. We have a live uh, get together. But most of the time, it's the online confidential online support group where these people are sending emails between each other and talking. And then, of course, they're totally welcome to contact them privately, and that goes on as well. Two people seem to hit it off pretty good, and they exchange phone numbers or what have you, and next thing you know, they're helping each other that way. So that's worked out very well. And then, of course, we do have the capability to do referrals. We're always looking for more therapists. So if anybody's interested that's listening to join our therapist network, just to go to our website, which is opusnetwork.org, and there's a section in there says contact. You can go in there and let us know that you would like to be part of the team. And matter of fact, just yesterday in the Zoom, we had a person from Greece on there who was a psychiatrist who's had
Awesome.
experiences as well. And so he's going to be joining the referral network. So we're trying to expand our capabilities and therefore help people in other places other than just the United States.
Ace. And on that basis, the link will be in the description to this video, by the way, or
Mhm.
the Spotify podcast.
Right,
So go and give that
right,
a look see.
right.
Do you think this work is a forever process, or will the organization's aims ultimately be hit and completed?
No, I think you're going to always have people that are just having that experience for the first time, and so it's an ongoing process. Um, so I don't think there's going to be an end date, so to speak. Matter of fact, I've been thinking about that because I'm no spring chicken. Oh, so I've been thinking about, well, who should take over this thing, because I don't want to see it just fade away. I don't want to see it fade away. Um, but we have some good board members on the team, and so I think we probably won't have to worry about that too much. We'll be able to find a person that'll run with the ball,
Good. Well,
and
you don't want to see all your hard work unwound, do you, just because you decide to step
right,
away?
right, exactly,
Hmm.
exactly right. Yep. Yeah, worked too hard over too many years to see it go by the wayside.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you could ask the question: then, what would be the point? I know you will have helped people in that interim period, but you want to see this
right,
long term, don't you?
right, exactly.
Excellent. Okay, let's get a bit into the MUFON side of things. You've told me initially how you got involved with MUFON. Um,
Hmm.
what was let's just look at some of your early cases and see what your thought processes were then, how you
Hmm.
felt and what you did, etc. So could you
Hmm.
just take us back to your first, second, or third, whatever one it was, talk us through it, what happened, etc.
Yeah, well, this is interesting because, as I mentioned earlier, MUFON was basically a nuts and bolts kind of an organization. They weren't not that interested or didn't have the capability to help people that are in contact with non-human intelligences. And so I early on, after the second or third case that I did, and the same kind of scenario came up, I talked to the international director of MUFON, and said to them that, you're missing the boat here. There are people coming to you, on a daily basis looking for assistance, and you don't have the capability to do it. Well, Opus does have that capability. Okay, we can help these people. So what happened was that all of the phone calls that were coming into MUFON were redirected to me. All right, so I was actually helping these people directly, and that went on for a number of years until finally, after some cajoling, uh, they decided, okay, we need to step up here. We need to start doing this. And Kathleen Martin, who's another good friend, um, stepped up and basically started to put together the organization that they have, and they call it their ERT, their Experiencer Resource Team, which I'm also on that team as well, as a research consultant. One of the things we did in 2007 was they came to me and asked me to put together a research paper um, on these experiencers. And so I got a couple of psychologists together, and we took 71 people that claimed that they had contact with non-human intelligences, and 51 as a control group. And we basically um, found that these people did not, in either group, have a psychopathology. They were all sane people. They were not fantasy prone. Okay. Um, After their experiences, their worldview changed significantly. They came back with the feeling that we need to be better stewards of the planet. We need to be more loving. We need to be more kind to one another, which is wonderful. Um, we also found out that the experiencer group, their temporal lobe activity was different than the control group. There was a definite difference there. And that gets it to be really interesting because Gary Nolan from Stanford University has done some major research doing MRIs of these experiencers' brains, and found that in the area of the caudate putamen area, there was a lot more connections in their brains, okay, than non-experiencers. And this also gave them capabilities, seemingly, of telepathic capabilities, psychic capabilities, and it ran in families. And each generation had experiences. So it was like whatever happened when, who knows how far back something happened, but they would continue to follow generations of these people. And that's why they're having experiences, because I think they're just making sure that whatever experiment they did, a bazillion years ago, is still on track to do whatever the heck it is that they want it to do. But can you imagine these people also connect with other people that have that same thing going on in their brain? So it's like an evolutionary process that's going on, whether it's natural or it's caused by them. And that's another thing that Gary Nolan talked about, was the fact that, geologists say that our planet is 4.5 billion years old, okay? And that the genome, the human genome, uh, changes, evolves about every 600,000 years. So he's putting these numbers together and he's saying, well, for people to be as far along as we are, based on how the genome changes, the planet needs to be 9 billion years old, unless somebody way back when manipulated our genome. And that's why we are where we are now in supposedly 4.5 billion years versus 9 billion years. I mean, this stuff, as you say, once you start going down this rabbit hole, there are so many fascinating things with it. And I'm so happy that a scientist like Gary Nolan, who is an experiencer himself, he's an experiencer. and he's done some interesting interviews. And so he's got people like Kit Green and Eric. Oh Christ, I can't think of his last name right now. But anyway, there's a lot of interesting people that are now starting to really look at these kind of things, and whether or not we'll ever figure it out is a whole nother question. You
Well,
know,
I hope we do. Put it that way. I'm going to ask you a few questions on this now.
sure.
The first being, you've alluded to the fact that you believe that everyone is involved somehow. Okay, so
Mhm.
maybe we'll have experiences, but the majority of us, the vast majority, seem to not remember consciously.
Mhm.
If those experiencers come back with altered brain chemistry, technically, that
Mhm.
show activity in that region of the brain that you alluded to, can if we looked at the control group to see that there isn't that change,
Mhm.
could we then say that the majority of people don't have experiences, but just those select few do? Do you know what I mean? Because that goes against what you
Yeah.
then would said. What do you
Mhm.
think?
Mhm. Yeah, and well, I think that it's complicated. There's no question about it. You know how, but it seems like at least that particular group that Gary Nolan got involved with, there was definite reasons why this was generational because they all had that same thing going on. All right, which is common. I mean, you talk about indigenous people having experiences, military people having experiences. So I don't think it's just relegated to those people. I think there's other things going on they're harvesting eggs or semen, and so that's a whole nother thing with regard to the hybridization program that's going on. You know, why is that going on? You know, is this something that is going to benefit humanity at some point, or is this a way for them to take over without taking out their ray guns and shooting you or something? You know, because eventually, if we're all been abducted, taken, um, we'll be part them.
I know, and that's freaky to think about in itself. Um,
Yes.
the abilities side of things, are people upgraded, or do you think an old defunct ability of ours has been turned back on in certain people?
Yeah, you keep saying, we only use 10% of our brain. So, and so
I'm
what's the
at
other?
4% right now.
Oh, you know, so what's the rest of the brain doing there? Nothing. You know, yeah, we're still evolving. We're still evolving, and these people that have that capability in their caudate putamen area, that's one step uh, further along than maybe a lot of us are at this point. So uh, we can only surmise what is going on here.
Yeah, it's only a theoretical, isn't it? I mean, the way I look at it is that people seem to be given these things rather than we're all innately telepathic or whatever, and then
Mhm.
we're in our default off status at the moment. I think these people are being upgraded, which goes to what you said about Gary Nolan's intervention in this
Mhm.
theory. But to what end? What end are we being upgraded for?
Well, I think if we look at what we do with animals, okay, and various experiments that are ongoing, we go out in the ocean and we pull a dolphin out of the water and we tag him, we take blood samples out of him, and then we throw him back in the water. And then a year later, we come back and find that same dolphin and pull him out of the water, measure him, check his tag, take more blood samples or what other kind of samples they may be taking. And it's an ongoing process. And it's like an educational process that we're not at the top of the food chain, that these things are going on in a totally different reality. And that these are just students coming, every year it's a new group of students. We have to teach them how to handle these humans. you know? And that's kind of where I look at it. it's just that we are not at the top of the food chain. We're interacting with this other reality that we don't understand. It looks like magic in so many cases. Like Arthur C. Clarke talked about.
Mm.
They're so far advanced it just looks like magic to us. So yeah, what's the ultimate thing? I don't know. They're probably just working on us, and hey, we're gonna be incredible at some point in time.
Les, how
We're gonna,
come you don't know all the answers immediately? What's going
yeah.
on?
Well, what's this guy Masters who wrote a book here recently talking about all these things are future humans coming back, and
Mm.
that our heads are going to get bigger, you know, and we're just going to morph into a gray eventually. Um,
Yeah,
but
I don't want to live underground to become a grey because that's what it seems like it would be, wouldn't it? With the
yeah,
grey
yeah,
skin and
I like a little more sunlight.
yeah, me too, me too. I want to get my vitamin D in. Um, regarding abductions, what was
Mhm.
the one case that stuck out to you the most that you personally investigated?
Well, I think one of the real original cases was, and it's in my book, "The Unknown Other: An Existential Proposition of Alien Contact," which is on Amazon.
By now.
Yeah, by now, is a couple amateur pilots. Um, they were picnicking in this park just north of Santa Cruz, and they were coming out, and it was dusk, and they noticed over the ocean this this light, and it caught their attention, and it started to get bigger and bigger and bigger until it was literally over their head. And it turned out to be a triangular craft about the size of a small Learjet. And it silently, no noise whatsoever, just silently moved into this canyon behind them where they were standing. And they noticed another light over the ocean. And this light got bigger and bigger and bigger. Next thing, it's over their head. It's another triangular craft about the same size. And the first one, they felt they were looking at it. The second one, they felt it was looking at them, and they got frightened at that point. And they decided they're going to get out of the park. They started to go down this path, and I was up there with them. And this path during the daytime is dark because it's heavily wooded and it's rocky, and so, but they felt like they were on automatic control. It's almost like they felt like they drifted down this path to where their car was. And that's the last thing they remember until 3 hours later, they were in a restaurant, which is only about 10 minutes away from where they had been. And they had no recollection of how they got there. And they had 3 hours of missing time. Well, they eventually came to one of the support group meetings, and they had developed a rash after this experience. And they went to the doctor. I think he went to his doctor first. And doctor says, well, there's a lot of poison ivy, poison oak in that park, so you could be that. But he said, no, it's not that. I said, I don't really know what it is. So they eventually went to her doctor, and he said, well, maybe it's some reaction to something, but I have no idea what it is. Anyway, they took a picture of this rash, and they showed it to the rest of the people in the group. And almost without exception, they all said at one time or another they had that same kind of a rash. So this is the part that really blows my mind. Another person in the group says, I think I know what that's from. And we said, okay, please tell us. That it's the reaction to the fluid that they dip you in to sanitize you when they bring you on board the craft. Okay, that that was really interesting. Now, fast forward 30 years. 3 months ago, I got a call from them. I haven't talked to them in years. All of a sudden, revelations are now starting to pop up in their minds. She remembered being dipped in fluid. she remembered being dipped in the fluid. And it was like, after that much time, this thing finally bubbled to the top. And so, yeah, it's just unbelievable.
It's
And
astounding. Does
I've
that mean
not
we go fully underneath? Like, like a popsicle going into,
exactly,
how
exactly.
weird.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can understand it from a biological perspective, because they don't want to bring any of our filth on board, do they?
No,
But yeah,
no.
no, it is weird scenario. Is there a golden case, do you think, that you would point to that, for all intents and purposes, you could say that it proves the abduction phenomenon is real? Like, in the wider scheme, you not necessarily had to have investigated it yourself, but
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I mean, Terry's case is a wonderful one. I mean, he had a buddy there that he got abducted with, and he his buddy went down the wrong path, so to speak, and finally ended up dead. But it's well documented. I mean, he's got X-rays and everything. So for me, it's a modern day type of a case. That is a very good case. That's a very good case because, I mean, the government came in there. He had to sign papers that he wouldn't talk about this, and all kinds of documentation that he had is just incredible. So I think, yeah, Incident at Devil's Den is the book that Terry put out there. That's a fascinating read. Scary, very scary.
yeah, the whole story is kind of freaky. It makes you really worry, not worry. It makes you wonder
Mhm,
about what everything is for. And I know we go to the
mhm,
wider picture here, but you think, right, we're living our life now, and everything seems normal. But once your eye is open to this side of our experiences, you then think, Jesus, I know nothing. And if all this stuff is real, and it
mhm. Yeah.
pretty much alludes to the fact that it is, it
Mhm.
makes our life here seem pointless.
Well, I think that we are experiencing something that we're supposed to experience at this level in this reality. And now this other reality is starting to impinge a little bit,
Mm.
getting into our heads a little bit more, which again is an evolutionary process, I think, is that it's causing us to think differently about why we're here, what are we doing here, um, and there's a much bigger picture that's going on that we don't have the full or a piece of puzzle. That's right. We're missing pieces of the puzzle to put it all together, and I think eventually we'll find those pieces and be able to better understand what's going on. I think once these entities actually end up showing themselves, and like they supposedly have to certain people, um, that we'll be able to have further discussions about this and understand. Okay, why are you guys doing this? What's the purpose of the hybridization program? Why do you need that? I mean, supposedly they needed to survive themselves. This is something that's going to be able to have them live a little bit longer you know uh, than otherwise. They didn't do this. I mean, there's all kinds of theories about that, but it's just an amazing reality that we don't understand. Just a
I
whole
th-
nother ball.
you've just changed a thought pattern in my head here, which is to say, when you said the word impinged,
Mm-hmm,
that is almost like interfering with this reality. And maybe it's 100% true, we're here to experience this reality, and because this thing's getting in the way, it's stopping the full experience of this reality. And maybe
mm-hmm,
that's part of what the suppression of it is all about, is to stop the focus drifting, maybe.
mm. Oh, it's absolutely could be. Absolutely could be. Yeah, well, I wish I had more answers, but just more questions.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? It's questions
Yeah,
and questions with
yeah,
endless non-answers. But I'm not blaming you for that, because you're just a person like me. Um,
right.
let's expand this a bit further. Are we dealing, from your perspective, with nuts and bolts crafts and beings, or do you think it is something else entirely?
Well, I think one of the things I talk about often is the fact, is it extraterrestrial in nature? Is it interdimensional in nature? Is it time travelers? Is it our military, or is it all of the above? And that's what I think it is. It's all the above.
It's
It's
all.
not just one thing. It's a variety of things. You have physical, hard craft uh, beings, and then you have all this interdimensional type things, energy beings, you know, spiritual entities, angels, demons. I mean, it's. There's such a group within the government, that thinks these things are demons. It's called a Collins group, as
Oh,
Lou Elizondo talks about in his book. Yes, the Collins.
why is it called
So
the Collins Group? Is that because somebody called Collins runs it or something?
evidently. Matter of fact, he kind of brushed over it. He didn't go into much detail other than to say that here's this ultra religious group, as he called them, the Collins group. So I have to
Hmm.
dig in a little bit further on that one.
Yeah, the all of the above scenario makes it difficult for us because obviously if it was one thing, we could follow that one thing and then get two answers. But because it's so many things, and I believe on the same lines as you, by the way, it's so many things, you almost can't get to there because one thing is muddy in the waters for the others.
Yeah, yeah,
Frustrating.
it's very frustrating. I mean, uh, the latest thing I heard was Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp on their podcast that they have put together documentation that if anything should happen to them, this would go out and expose everything supposedly, maybe to the detriment of national security even. So they're putting the word out because I guess they're getting threats. They're already getting threats, and which again is unfortunate that this kind of thing is happening. And of course, Lou Elizondo in his book talks about the beginning, and oh my God, the poor man and his family had to go through to try to get to where they are now. They had to move a couple of times. They had threats, and oh, it's horrible. It's horrible. Just because we want to find out what's going on, folks, and our government is not being very cooperative.
No, I watched that episode of that podcast the other day actually, and it's an interesting thing. But they did allude to the fact that this congressional hearing on the 13th you said should shed more light on the subject. I hope that comes to fruition and that is the case, and we get a lot of the stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that initial one that when Grush was there was mind blowing to me. I mean, here he is. He mentioned interdimensional type of beings, but we have the crash craft. We have alien bodies. And it's all within probably the military industrial complex. That's why we can't get to it because they're not relegated to follow the Freedom of Information Act. Only the government has that on their head. But anyway,
They
it's
said we've got biologics, right? And they
yeah,
said yes, and all that malarkey. If it ever came to it, and the government agreed and put a photo or a video up for people to see on national television or whatever, how do you think that would go down? Would that shit everyone up, or would it everyone go,
well,
"Well, we're interested"?
I think it's amazing. It's amazing. I think what happened is that the majority of people would just be their mind would be blown initially. Oh my God, that's true now. We believe it. Um, and then the people that are skeptics and debunkers, if you will, they're probably not, just like in our election right now. I mean, you got one guy telling lies like it's going out of style. I'm not even going to mention his name, but and you know and people believe it. People believe it. So you're gonna have a group of people that are just gonna say, "Oh no, that's baloney. That's not true," you know. And that's probably that 30% that just not gonna, for whatever reason, you know, they're not gonna be able to buy into it.
But you're not going to say that the whole world is going to collapse into a fiery ball just because this goes on
No,
TV.
no, I don't think so. I
It
don't
would
think
just be
so.
the next day and then the next day.
I mean, we have to go on. We have to live life. We we have to get up in the morning. We go to work. We come home at night, have a beer, watch some TV, go to bed. Next morning, doing the same thing. You got to take care of the family. You can't just say, "Okay, that's it. I'm done." go go hunt for your food or something. No, people are going to have to live their lives. It's going to be a little. It's going to be a blip. It's going to be a blip in a history. Oh my God. Yes, we are not alone. Okay. Now we're moving right along to the next World War or something. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Let's not go there. We don't want another one of those because we know how that is going to end up playing out. Will be glass. Um, so, with all the nuts and bolts scenario and all the other things that you said, interdimensional, this, that, and the other, with all the multitude of different experiences being reported, what does this suggest about aliens visiting us? Are there infinite amounts? Is it just 200 different varieties of creatures? What do you think it is?
Yeah, and that's a good question because I mean I've heard Linda Howe talk about like there's three basic groups that are coming here, but then I've heard as many as close to 200 different types that are coming here. Now, when we're saying coming here, are we talking extraterrestrial or is it interdimensional? And if it's any of those or even time travelers, it could be a lot more even because they have that capability. And so it's really difficult to pin it down to, is it the Greys, the reptilians, the praying mantis, or the Nordics? It could be a lot more than that. It could be a lot more than that. And again, it's another reality that we just don't understand.
Hmm. Yeah,
You
you
know?
hear the common ones over and over again, don't you? The ones you
Yeah,
listed, and maybe the tall
yeah,
whites thrown in, and a
yeah.
few other things. But the
Right.
amount of reports you see where somebody said, "Oh, this little guy who's blue," and then this green
Mhm,
guy, this red guy, different eye color. If all those are true, and who am I to doubt these people? That
mhm.
means every person and his uncle are coming to visit us. But
Yeah. Well, supposedly, I mean, we're a really beautiful planet, which we're slowly screwing up um,
that is
with
true.
our global warming going on now, and how long we can sustain a planet without overheating, and it's unfortunate that we're at this point, but maybe it's a good thing we're at this point because now we're starting to recognize it more and more, and I think a lot more politicians are on board with the fact that yeah, we're screwing up the planet here, and the things that people come back with, and that's why I'm kind of in one respect kind of happy if we all did have an experience because if we all come back with this same feeling that we need to be better stewards of the planet, okay, that's clean air, clean water, and being nicer to one another, maybe we won't have wars in the future. Maybe we'll finally evolve to the point where, you know, we can talk to one another without, pulling out our guns or knives or whatever.
I hope that's the case, and I think it's going to ultimately end there. It's like the same with the truth thing. Yeah, the truth ultimately will out, and ultimately good will out as well. So we should be
I
on
hope
that
you're
path
right.
towards
I
that.
hope you're right about that. My God, because like I say, this election that we're having here in the United States, it's a cliffhanger right now, and I just can't believe that. Anyway,
I
I
know what you're
shouldn't
going
go
to
into
say, but
politics.
we'll leave that there. Politics, I like
Okay,
to keep,
yeah, yeah,
out.
I got it. I got it.
Yeah, I think it's ultimately going to end up going that way. But maybe the key thing is the abilities that you were talking about earlier, because if people, the majority of people are telepathic and we can read each other's thoughts, truth can't hide, and then you wouldn't hurt someone else because you'd know how they feel and all that sort of stuff, and then that would
Hmm.
lead to ultimate
Right.
good. So maybe
Yeah.
that's what it's all about,
It could be. It
speeding
absolutely
it
could
along,
be.
you
I
know.
mean, I hope you're right. I absolutely hope you're right.
I hope so, but we won't be alive to see it unless it's one
Maybe
of our
not.
next lives, maybe.
Right, right. Next reincarnation.
Exactly. Is the paranormal one thing, or is it separate phenomenon with overlaps?
Oh, it's multiple phenomena. And I think it all is part of a puzzle. That again, we still don't have maybe all the pieces of that puzzle to better understand it. But yeah, they're all connected in some way, shape, or form.
Cool. Let's talk a little bit about your book. What's the
Mm.
story of your book, The Unknown Other and the Existential Proposition of Alien Contact?
Yeah, what I wanted to do after all these years to put something in writing that would talk to people about the experience that these people are having, whether it's from a psychological standpoint or a physical standpoint. I try to cover as many bases as possible, whether you're talking about implants, talking about hybridization, talking about the physical effects, the electromagnetic effects on people, the gamma rays, the X rays. A lot of people have been harmed by being too close to these things. So it's very physical in nature. Um, and then also trying to give an overview of the general feeling. Like this book came out right after the initial report from the ODNI, talking about the fact that yeah, they're looking at 400 cases, and the only one they could figure out was one case. The rest of them are unknowns. They don't know. So I talk about that, and then I talk about Graves and his experience in favors. In the Tic Tac case, I talk about that a little bit, and I try to give an overview at the end about what does this all mean to us? Is this something that we need to fear? Is this something that we need to embrace? Or is it a combination of things, which I believe it is? I mean, we have good people and we have bad people here on this level, this reality. Okay, and I think the same thing is going on wherever that might be, whether it's interdimensional, whether it's extraterrestrial in nature. You know, I've been told many times about the reptilians being, oh, the bad guys, right? But I've also heard stories about how loving they can be as well. So,
You don't
you
often
know,
hear those, though, do you?
no, you don't. But the bottom line is that, yeah, it's a combination. Greer talks about, oh, they're all good, and the Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs, they're all bad. It's a combination. It's a combination. It's not just one thing. Um, so, I mean, at least having looked at this thing for the many years that I have, that's the feeling that I have, and the information that we keep getting. And we continue to do research. Matter of fact, we just the that report that research we did in 2007. That's on our website in the documentation center area, articles and documents. It's called the Omega-3 study. And then we just finished up the first phase of the Omega-4 study, where we went out to therapists and got their feedback as far as what they were experiencing with these experiencers, which was really interesting. And then we have the second phase where we're actually going to go out to their clients and get their feedback. Um, and then we're going to hopefully put that in. But the first phase of the Omega-4 study is also in the document section. So it might be interesting for people to take a look at that.
Oh, definitely. Where do you think is that all leading to what you just said a moment ago about how you see the universe being laid out as the puzzle pieces? That there are good things, there are bad things, but all these things are happening. Is that
Yes.
where that feedback is alluding to as well?
Yeah. Yeah. We're trying to first of all, with the therapists in the Omega-4 study, we're trying to give them better tools to work with these people. We found that EDMR and QHHT are hypnotherapy protocols that seem to work very well with people. That's the feedback that we got. People are seeing, the number one thing people are seeing are the grays. It's almost like there must be a store out in the universe where all these different entities get together and they say, well, we need a couple of grays here to go abduct somebody tomorrow. So come on board and we're going to, do your thing. But yeah, it's very, very difficult to say this is it and there's no other explanation. I mean, there's so many explanations to what's going on.
No, we're in the dark ultimately. We can only theorize, but with the evidence pointing in a certain direction. So I understand that. You can never say for sure. Because somebody down the line will say, well, look, Les didn't know because it was actually this. You'll never know, will you? We're just cogs in a machine at a certain time, I suppose. But hey ho. I'm going to ask you one final question before we move into the Koit zone, which is AI. Yeah. How, would you think AI is for the benefit of us, and will it help us to discover answers about the alien phenomenon?
Well, that's an interesting question. I've not put a lot of thought into how AI would impact. Well, certainly, with the capabilities, especially now with quantum computers coming on board, there may be some really interesting things coming out of this that can be posed to AI and say, okay, so now with this information, what can you tell us? But I tell you, the most important thing is right now for experiencers anyway, is the fact that they need to know they're not alone, that there are people out there that can help them. And AI, I'm not sure exactly where that's going to end up, how, certainly from a business standpoint, military standpoint, a lot of other standpoints, it probably is going to be a significant factor, a major significant factor. In this realm, I'm not sure. It would be interesting to start posing questions to AI about, okay, so what's the reality behind, hybridization? Why are they doing it? And matter of fact, one of our technical people, one of our board members who does our website and everything, I ought to tell him to do that because he's got the AI program.
Definitely, because I think there's lots that you could glean. Even it might be the AI itself, at least sending you in a direction that you might not have thought of before.
Yeah, and as I'm speaking to you, I'm actually AI.
Well, it's technically true. You're just ones and zeros on a screen. Right, Les, it is now time for the Koit zone. Koit zone!
Oh.
In the Koit zone, I would just ask you random questions that bear no relevance to anything we've just spoken about already. So there we go. First one, right. What is your favorite movie?
Oh, Horrible Bosses.
Really? Oh, yeah, it's a good film, that, yeah. Is that Jennifer Aniston? Is that one?
Yes, it is. That whole crew, that movie just blew me away. It was just so funny.
Yeah, I do. I like that one. It's a good film.
Oh God, that just off the top of my head, that just popped into my head for whatever reason. I don't know. I got a lot of favorite movies, but yeah.
I always think that if it's the first thing that comes into your mind, it's the right one. There's a lot to be said about gut instinct. So well played. Yeah. Right, what is your go-to drink?
Martini, gin martini.
Have you got one with you right now?
No, it's a little too early.
Yeah, it's what, 11, 12, 1 o'clock now?
Yeah.
I'm on the vodka. No, water. When's the last time you cooked something outrageously tasty?
Oh my God. Yeah, it was like 2 days ago. I made a big pot of chili, which is outrageous. And then the day before, I made Chinese food. I'm actually, I like to cook. I like to cook.
And you're a good cook, presumably, based on those statements.
Oh yeah, that chili turned out perfect.
Get in. Can you ride a bike? And if so, could you ever do wheelies?
I could ride a bike. I've never did wheelies. Never did wheelies. No,
Did you ever
no.
try?
I don't think so. Back when I was growing up, there wasn't a lot of wheelies going on back in those
Okay.
days.
No fads of wheelies at your time. Um,
No,
what is the most expensive thing you've lost?
lost.
Mm.
Hmm. Well, that's a good question. Hmm. What's the most expensive thing? Well, two phases. One was an English bike that I had, and one day I was riding this bike, and I was racing down this hill and hit a patch of sand. Did a flip.
Did a
Wasn't a
wheelie.
it wasn't a wheelie. I flipped over the handlebars and broke my collarbone. Passed out. Woke up. The ambulance came, took me to the hospital. Was in there for a couple of days. Back in those days, anyway. Um, so I was crushed that my bike was twisted up. But my parents fixed it for me, and so I was quite happy. So I was riding the bike another day and came into the driveway, laid the bike down behind my mother's car, and she decided to go shopping and ran over the bike.
That bike was destined to go into the scrap heap, wasn't it?
So, so all right. So I get a little bit older, and it's like it's time to drive a car, right? Or get a car. And my parents weren't rich or anything, and so they said, well, we can't afford to get you a car. And I said, well, how about a motorcycle? And my father looked at me and started to laugh. He says, oh, really? You want a motorcycle? And the way you took care of your English bike? Oh my God. Anyway,
So you lost
that's
your bike, essentially.
I lost my bike. That was it.
Yeah,
I lost my bike.
that's a shame. Have you ever been accidentally locked in anywhere?
Locked in.
Mm.
How about locked out, but not in?
Stay out of my house! Yeah. You've never been locked in a toilet or what you would call a bathroom or whatever.
No, no,
Oh
never.
no, restroom you call them, isn't it? That's it, restroom.
Yeah, right. No, no.
Okay, fair play. Can you lucid dream or go out of body?
Well, I have some really incredible lucid dreams. I mean, they just seem so real. I mean, I can smell, taste, see colors, everything. I have not had an out of body experience that I can, maybe just before going off to sleep, you get into that state where you feel like you're floating a little bit, but I'm not traveling anywhere. I'm not doing anything exotic.
But the
But
lucid dreams must be amazing.
they are. I mean, I had one last night that was so incredibly detailed, and it didn't make any sense to me. It was like I was helping somebody pack up their Volkswagen camper bus, which I had a Volkswagen camper bus, eons ago. And we were trying to put so much into the camper bus, it was impossible to fit it all. And I kept looking for spaces in there, and I could see the color of the vehicle and what we were doing. These little bags we were putting. But it was. And so you wake up and you say, "Why the hell did I have that dream? What does that mean?" I'm trying to put, 2 pounds of crap in a 1 pound bag or something.
Yeah, well, you'll be pondering on that one for a while. Why were you doing that? I like that. I was going to ask the question, do you have any pets? And I think I know the answer because you were escorting your dogs out earlier. So tell
Right,
me about
right,
your
yeah,
pets.
yeah. We have one Labradoodle combination, and her name is Bella. And then we got this little mix of a Yorkie and a Chihuahua, Miss Grumpy, but her name is Penelope.
Does she
No,
ride the other dog like a small dog on the big dog?
they are constantly tussling over a toy. I mean, they can sit there and play for hours just trying to take the toy away from one another. But yeah, they're both relatively young, so a lot of puppy in both of them still.
Yeah, a lot of energy. They're good. Good for your dogs are. Um, okay, final question in the Koit zone. You are offered a ring that once worn allows you to see the future, but just
Mm.
once at a specific time. How far into the future are you going, and what are you going to see?
Oh, I wish you would ask me what about the past.
That'll be the next question.
Oh, okay. All
Let's
right.
talk about the future first. So,
What would I like to see? I'd like to see who wins the election here.
and then you're going to place a bet, yeah?
Exactly.
Okay, now
Just gotta
answer
make
that
some
one
money.
from the past.
Oh, I love to go back to Egypt, ancient Egypt, and see how they pulled off making those pyramids. That is fascinating. And the other thing too is to go back to Peru and like Sacsayhuaman and those monolithic boulders that they put them together in such fashion. It just blows my mind.
Yeah,
I would
without
just
joints as well, like
oh
zero
yeah.
gap.
Oh, I mean it's phenomenal. And I would just love to be able to I mean, I've had some remote viewers a look at that and basically say, yeah, there was another civilization there that did that, that had that kind of capability. You know, they talk about the fact that these objects were basically like concrete, and they could pour these things, and then they could fit them together like that. And I don't know, but I would just like to go back to either one of those places to see how they did it.
And go,
Um,
yeah, I told you so. Yeah, that sort of
yeah,
thing. Yeah. Right, that
true
is the end of the
vibration.
Koit Zone. Thank you ever so much for travelling that journey with me. We have two final questions as always. The first one being, what else do you like to do in your downtime? Any activities or guilty pleasures for you?
Well, I like to read. And I just finished that book from Lou Elizondo, and I'm in the process of reading a book called Enough by oh God, what's her name? She was in the Trump White House. She was the assistant to the chief of staff, and
I think I know the one you mean.
yeah, Casey Cassidy. Oh God, I'm blanking on her name right now. But
It's
anyway,
her
it's
anyway.
called yeah. So I like to read. Um, I've been a gardener all my life. So, matter of fact, I just pulled out the last of my tomato plants. Um, and what else? What else? Well, I love watching all these shows like Ancient Aliens and things of that nature, or the Comedy Channel, and people like the Daily Show. I don't know if you have that over there, but it's political satire, and they skewer everybody.
Good. It's
And,
got to be 50-50. That's how we
oh
like
yeah,
it.
oh yeah, oh yeah. They do a good job of that.
Good on them.
Um,
How was your
yep.
tomatoes this year? How did the plants do?
Well, Texas is a very difficult place to grow tomatoes, unfortunately. The heat is too much for tomatoes. They don't like excessive heat, and they like cooler nights. So this is not a good place to. As a matter of fact, I've been trying. I've been here now over 7 years. California, I did fine with my tomatoes. Connecticut, I did spectacularly with my tomatoes. But here, so I think I'm giving up on tomatoes.
You have to grow more limes and oranges and hot stuff, yeah, or chilies.
Yeah,
Is it? Yeah.
yeah.
I was weirdly enough, I was speaking. My last guest that I interviewed prior to yourself, we also talked about his tomato plants. He did
Oh,
amazing this year. We did crap,
oh,
me and Tiff.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, I tell you, they're finicky. They're finicky. They got to be just right, and I don't know. It's
Yeah.
frustrating because I've been able to grow tomatoes on both coasts. Now I'm in the middle of the United States and I can't
Now you
grow
can't
them.
grow a thing.
No.
Yeah. Okay. This leads us to the final question, which is, What are you currently working on? Is there another book in the works, or is there something else for you?
No, we're actually working on a program to have continuing education credits to the therapists by presenting various um, topics and trying to uh, educate them further on what's going on. So that's one of the major projects that we're looking at right now, trying to set up ongoing educational credit for therapists. Um, we're also looking at doing some grant writing um, for future funding, so we can do other things. And and that's probably pretty much it at the moment. Those are two pretty big ones, actually.
Mm.
That's taking up a lot of time. So we're hopefully we'll make some progress in getting those things going for at least the coming year. And we're always looking for donations as a nonprofit. So if you have the mind to help us out, we'd appreciate it. And thank you for mentioning the book. Yes, The Unknown Other and the Existential Proposition of Alien Contact.
Bye now.
Thank you. And all the proceeds of that book sale go directly to Opus. I don't take anything for it. It's my deal.
No, good on you. On that basis, again, everyone, check out the links in the description to this video to Les's site and obviously to the book. Go and buy that. It supports that organization, which obviously gives great support to people who have gone through these experiences. Les, thank you ever so much for coming on the show. It's much appreciated.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you ever so much. And goodbye, everyone. Goodbye. To watch other KoitCast episodes, please click the image top left. To subscribe to my channel, please click the image top right. Please like and share to help KoitCast grow, and most importantly of all, please click the notification bell so you never miss an upload.